chemically. For example, they used alcohol. Alcohol is a chemical thing and it influences the balances, not necessarily curing the illness, you know, very often actually contributing to the illness. But nevertheless, there is an imbalance and people feel they need to have alcohol. The same is true about those different medications that are now used and that sometimes do help and sometimes don't. It is not very exceptional to explain a disease by the agent that comes from outside the organism, because many diseases are caused by agents outside the organism. For example, heart disease is caused by the problem in the organism. But tuberculosis, a very, very serious disease, and other infectious diseases are caused by agents outside the organism. You see, your organism may be very good, but a terrible bacillum is coming from outside, and your organism becomes sick. So it is the same with the culture. The culture influences the mind, but everything that is happening in the mind is supported by the brain. So culture influences the mind, and the brain and the organism suffer. You can very easily perceive that because in many of your lives, you have experienced the same thing. For example, something very good can happen in your life, and you are extremely happy. And you feel differently. You feel differently physically, right? You have a very um, rapid pulse, for example. So, a good thing, for example, you get a very good grade in class, and suddenly your pulse becomes very rapid, right? So, here you have something happening outside of you in culture, and you have a physical reaction. On the other hand, you can experience something tragic. I don't want this to happen to any of you, but let's say somebody in your family dies, and how terrible you would be feeling. You would actually have a stomachache, right? You would suddenly feel stomachache. What does stomachache have to do with something that happens outside of you and not at all physical? Well, this is how things are associated. You cannot separate mind from the body. So there are influences both ways. And therefore, we cannot distinguish between a political ideological understanding of madness and mental illness as a biological experience. We cannot. We are talking about one empirical phenomenon. And the cultural influences are the influence of the agent of the disease, and the biological experience is the effect of the disease. Okay. Rachna Yadav. I would like to see Rachna Yadav because Rachna actually,
She is joined.
yeah,
Yeah.
good. Rachna, I would like to see her.
Mhm.
She constantly actually writes to me wonderful questions.
Rachna, you can switch on your video if you would like.
I would like her to.
Yeah,
Yes.
she doesn't switch on the video.
So, um, so Rachna, uh, your last question, I don't have here written because it only came today, and it was about, I think, about the clash of civilizations. A very interesting question. But right now, I can. You asked me several questions. Considering autonomous mind as the cause of, this is what you're right, as the cause of diverse
Yes.
civilizations. Hello, Rachna. Very happy to see you. Yes, of diverse civilizations in the world, the perception by each mind being different, which may logically be seen forming the first principles of respective civilization, rooted in the existential experiences of that particular civilization. Then, well, let me stop here because this is the first question actually. Uh, the autonomous mind is not the cause of civilizations, and it is not the cause of culture. The mind, as I said earlier, is the cultural process on the individual level. And it happens simultaneously with the cultural process on the collective level. Cultural process, is self-caused. So it is happening simultaneously. You cannot have a mind if there is no culture. Again, you would be able to understand it if you read the beginning, the first 3 chapters of Mind, Modernity, Madness. The mind and civilization, the mind and culture is like eggs and chicken. We do not know which comes first. They coexist, right? Chickens produce eggs, but chickens are produced by eggs. Okay, so then Rachna asks, why only Western mind is projected as the universal mind to be copied by the rest of the world? So, first of all, who projects the Western mind as the universal mind? Right now, it is the social sciences who project the Western mind as the universal mind to be copied by the rest of the world. But social sciences are a fraud. What they say is wrong. Don't believe social sciences. Don't listen to social sciences. Reject social sciences. Another and more important answer to this, it is the Western mind that projects the Western, not just the Western, the monotheistic mind. So Islam very much projects itself as the universal mind. And why is this so? This is because of monotheism, because of the first principles of the monotheistic civilization. The world is created, according to this civilization, by one God. So, this one God creates the universal mind. That's why when India was ruled by Islam, Indians were considered primitive, pagan people, idol worshippers, not developed enough to reach the universal mind. So it's just because of the nature of this civilization. And then Rachna asks, how can we bring Western mind to acknowledge other existing forms of knowledge perceived by, say, Indian mind, which are not essentially rooted in objectivity and empirical nature? So, the Western knowledge, the Western mind, is not rooted in objectivity and empirical nature. It is rooted in a certain image of reality, the image of reality that is as created by one God, a universal image, the image of a universe, of a united world. It is science that is rooted in objectivity and empirical nature. Not every knowledge is science. And science absolutely requires objectivity and focus on empirical nature. As we talked, I think it was in the second lecture or something like that, we talked about that. Science is oriented towards the understanding of the empirical reality. So, of course, it has to be rooted in empirical reality. And the only way to understand empirical reality, the only way, is through logic and very careful logical definitions of various variables in this reality. Objectivity and empirical reality are as necessary for science as the rules of chess are necessary for chess. If you do not have those rules, you are playing an entirely different game. So this is not a matter of civilizations. It is a matter of necessity. Okay. Then Rachna continues. Rachna asks lots of questions. Can one completely categorize, she asks, Indian mind or Western mind, pertaining to exclusively Indian and Western ideas, as there has been always transfer and amalgamation of the ideas between different civilizations throughout the world? There are two questions in this one question. And the first one, yes, one can completely categorize Indian mind and monotheistic mind. For example, the idea of the universal soul, the Brahmanic idea, belongs solely to the Indian mind. And the idea of God, the creator of the universe, belongs solely to the monotheistic mind. Yes, it is possible to categorize them completely. She writes, there has been always transfer and amalgamation of the ideas between different civilizations throughout the world. And here I will say no. The extraordinary thing about civilizations is there has been no amalgamation. So for 5,000 years, you have the existence of both the Indian mind and the monotheistic mind. And there has never been any amalgamation between them. So that's the interesting thing. That's in India in particular, why after 1,000 years of Muslim rule in your society, less than a quarter of Indians converted to Islam because you are incapable of amalgamating. Okay, what else? Yes. Hmm?
Want to rejoin?
So what?
5 minutes left. And
So what can I do?
We will
Yeah.
rejoin the
Wait.
Just finish.
Then she asks, I have asked questions on dichotomy of Indian versus Western mind, as my research work is about finding Indian insights or concept of nation in international relations. Thus, there is a need to understand minutely what runs in depth in Indian versus Western mind, which causes them to look on the concept of nation in two completely different perspectives. From territorial, homogeneous. Who said that? Whoever said that the nation should be territorial and homogeneous? Only social scientists who you have to reject because they're obviously wrong. So, the nation, Rachna, is an historical phenomenon grounded in a particular historical context. This context is 16th century England. One is not free to invent and reinvent this historical phenomenon. So, the particular Indian view of the nation is neither here nor there. It wouldn't be the nation. If they use the word nation, the concept nation, that was invented in 16th century England, they have to refer to this phenomenon. Now, indeed, nationalism coming from this source was brought to England by the British, and it influenced India very much. But because India is a different civilization, it cannot integrate nationalism in the same way in which it was integrated in the civilization of its origin. So indeed, Rachna then asks that, or says that she would like to have more such programs in the future, and we are going to do that.
Yeah.
We are going to do that, and we certainly will have a specific program on
On nation
nationalism,
and national. Yeah.
and there would be a special section on Indian nationalism.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then
Now,
there is,
I
yes,
will continue.
I don't know, you do whatever, yes, there
Okay,
is.
next question. Okay, everybody, please rejoin. Okay, we are ending this meeting because it says only for 40 minutes. So